Hey guys, I am about to install a Cajun Gunworks short reset system. This P-01, when I got it, had some aftermarket springs in it from CZ Custom. And after I took it to the range, I realized that I was getting light primer strikes. That is because it has a 11.5-pound hammer spring right back here, and so there's not enough pressure on this trigger. I'll show you that it's clear. For when it forces down, it's not protruding the firing pin enough. I'm getting light strikes. It happened multiple times throughout multiple magazines when I was at the range. So that needs to be remedied. The way that the aftermarket addresses that is with an extended firing pin. A lighter spring that goes with it. It does come with a new pin that goes right here. And then this is actually a 13-pound hammer spring, which Cajun Gunworks says that with the 13-pound hammer spring, extended firing spring, you know, with this kit, you're guaranteed reliable ignition for carry purposes. So this particular one, you could get this kit just for $50, but for $62, I got this lifter, which is gonna help with reset. I'm actually not gonna be doing the lifter install today. I'm gonna do that when I change the hammer a little bit later on down the road. But I went ahead and got this kit so I'd have that piece. Because there were some already parts installed on this gun, I instead of buying an entire kit and doing a whole, you know, overhaul of the trigger system, you know, I'm having to kind of piece it together to kind of get it where I need it to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're gonna do is break down the gun. We're gonna align our marks right here. And we're gonna set aside the frame because we are gonna change the hammer spring here, but most of our work is going to be actually on the slide. So, all right, we're gonna field strip this. Here, this is a green recoil spring and a stainless steel guide rod that did come with this gun. Those are extras, or aftermarket rather. All right, so now we're going to be replacing several things in this kit. The firing pin, which is, of course, you know, resides in here. The spring that goes around the firing pin. And there's also another spring for the firing pin block right here. Okay, so for those of you who are new to CZ, you know, the firing pin comes out right there, but the block is on newer models, and you push this down and you push on this, and the firing pin, you know, strikes the primer. That is part of the safety. So whenever you get that initial take up in the trigger, you're actually rubbing it up against that, depressing it, which allows the firing pin to go forward. So if the CZ were to be dropped, the gun would not go off. Even if the hammer were to fall, if this is not depressed by someone pulling the trigger, then the gun won't go off. So, all right, we're gonna first start by getting our roll of tape out here, and we are going to punch out this pin right here. All right, so when you remove this now, you do want to be careful because this could spring outward. It is, you know, under tension here. And so I put my hand there to catch it. And now in order to remove that, just simply push the firing pin block back. There's the firing pin block right there, and it does have a spring. We're going to be replacing this. Also, this would be a good place to polish to smooth out your uptake. Okay, so there's the old firing pin, and then there should be a spring up in there, and there you go. So inside there, this actually rides like this, with these pieces upward that catch on the block. And we're going to be installing a new one. And this one is extended, so I'll see if I can get you a comparison here. And I know it's not by much. I mean, we're talking maybe a millimeter, millimeter and a half. Let's see if I can get those kind of flush there. Yeah, and as you can see there, there is a difference. Let's see if I can show you that here. But it's not by much, guys. But that's all it takes, really, to make a difference, you know, in the firearm, being reliable and versus somewhat not reliable whenever you change that hammer spring. So we do have a replacement spring for our new firing pin. And when this goes in, you've got to make sure that these are facing upward, right? Okay, and then with our firing pin block here, we're going to change this spring, which is, again, part of our kit here. All right. So I just want to make sure that I've got these pointed upward. Okay. And I am going to orient this correctly. Okay. All right, now at this time it does protrude a bit, but once we put our pin in this hole right here, then this is going to stay back into the slide. All right, so we have a new pin. Right here. And let's make sure we got a good punch for that. Okay. And I can actually see it lining up in there as I push it backward. It's always great when I get to mess up stuff on camera here. Go ahead and get this started. Okay. And I'm gonna push that in. And as you can see, it's now holding it in better. Okay, so I'm having trouble getting it aligned, so I'm just going to make sure that my firing pin is indeed where it's supposed to be. And I'm going to get this started. Okay. And again, I'm gonna make sure that it's lined out properly so that it's gonna go all the way through. All right, that was a little difficult there, but that's okay. So now I'm gonna use my roll pin punch to secure that down. And we're gonna check both sides, so it's a little bit more recessed on this side. And that looks about right there. So now we are going to check function. And I'm going to push down on the firing pin block and make sure that the firing pin protrudes, and it does. So we're good. All right, and I am not a gunsmith, guys, so that's why if that looked difficult and hard to do, it's because I'm not very good at this. So now we are done with the slide. and I can put that aside and we can go to the frame. And this is gonna be pretty easy. I've actually done this before. So what you just saw with the slide was the first time I'd ever done that before. I had seen video and I decided, well, first time I do it, I ought to just make a video. Why not? I mean, it's probably how it's gonna be for you the first time. You get to see somebody else do it. Okay, so take off the grips, basically just so I can see the spring a little bit better. And now we've got a picture into this CZ custom spring that is already in there. And I'm gonna be changing it for one that is a little bit heavier to make sure that I get reliable primer strikes, because I am carrying this gun. So there's a couple of ways to remove this. The plug is basically down here by this lanyard. It's got this plate connected to it. You can take some pressure off by just pushing it down onto the table like so, and then we're going to find a properly sized punch and then push this pin right here through, and that comes out pretty easily. And watch out, it is under tension, and then it comes out. Okay, and you'll want to remove this piece here, and again I'm going to try to put some tension on it. Okay, and the spring comes out. Okay, and we're going to be replacing that with our new spring, Cajun Gunworks spring. And if you really wanted to be a crazy gunsmith, you could, sorry, my camera angle's off a little bit here. I'm new at this, so bear with me. You could polish this right here that the spring rides on for a smoother double action. But whenever I change the hammer, I'm gonna do the polishing at that time. Right now, I'm really just trying to focus on getting the gun reliable so that if I want to carry it, I can. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead and position this back in there.
Daddy, it's 5 o'clock.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and use the table here to help me with this. All right, and we're gonna put that back in. Okay, I've got the spring in. Now I just need to put this flap back on. Wondering if I should have done that first, because it looks like there is a lip here that slides underneath that. So I am going to push that pin out again. And I'm gonna get this aligned first here. Okay, so I'm gonna move that back out of the way just a little bit and rest it there while I get my hammer spring around the strut. So once again, I'm going to use the table to help me with that. Okay, there, I got it. Now I found the pinhole. Okay. That was a learning experience. Even though I have done that once before, but it was on an SP-01. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting out of camera view here. I'm doing this with my iPhone, and my phone is actually up on a shelf here, and I keep wanting to pull the gun in to work on it. Okay, so now that should cock back and work. Okay. So, that's that. Let's put our grips back on. And again, I apologize for my lack of professionalism. You know, I am a mechanic, not a gunsmith, but I'm trying. It's a lot cheaper to do this yourself, and I've learned a lot. I really have enjoyed taking these apart. These are pretty complicated, which is one of the reasons I enjoy them, because Glocks are so easy to work on. And I kind of, went through that phase and moved on. Okay, let's get our barrel back here. All right. Line up our double action. Does not feel that bad, actually. I was kind of worried that it might make it a little too heavy, but double action is still very nice. And I would imagine that at the range, that double action is still going to be very controllable. And now we're going to have reliable ignition every step of the way. So, the lifter actually goes into the sear cage back here, and that is a whole nother bear to do. And like I said, we're gonna do that when we do the hammer later on down the road. So, okay, that is how to replace a hammer spring, a firing pin block spring, firing pin, and firing pin spring on a CZ P-01. It would also be basically the same for an SP-01 as well. Thanks.